Part 43. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 422. Chapter 422, Bama Village Base. Xiaopeng was also surrounded by several of his brothers. Tell me, what's going on, how come your classmate became Uncle Shi's son? They all asked Xiaopeng. Xiaopeng shook his head like a rattle. I don't know anything. He really didn't know, but when I saw him before, I always thought who he looked like. I just didn't expect that he would be Uncle Shi's son. He really didn't expect this. They all came to the living room. Mei Shui slept late last night and couldn't get up at this time. Hians went to the company first, and now the company is almost ready to start operations. He is very busy. The old lady pulled Huanian Chen to sit next to her. It's too bad, your dad is also a useless person. It's really hard for you and your mother to get you back now. The old lady really felt sorry for this child, but she could also tell that he was well taught by his mother. Huanian Chen wanted to nod, but after seeing the look on the old man's face, he felt that he should save some face for the old man. Fortunately, my uncle and the others take good care of us. Hearing his words made the old lady even more distressed. No matter how good an uncle is, he is still an uncle. It's okay now. You are finally back. Now the family will definitely have a better life together. The children are now so old, and the Shi family must have started to make arrangements. Of course, Nian Chen will be my family's treasure from now on, and he will definitely stay away from suffering, the old man assured him. After everyone sat down, they greeted Huanian Chen one by one. I am Gu Jiaran, you can call me Sister Ran like them, Gu Jiaran said with kindness. Next are Gu Jiaja and the others. After that, Xiao took his younger brother. Anyang's child is too young. He is looking for his mother everywhere, and his mother is making breakfast in the kitchen. You brat, don't you want to be kissed by my wife? I look for your mother every day. If you have the ability, don't play with us. The old lady picked up Ming Ming, who was sitting on the ground. Even after being hugged, he didn't even cry. My wife is bad. This kid really dared to say anything. Yes, I'm bad. I'll sell you out soon and buy candies for my brothers and sisters, the old lady said with a smile. Huanian Chen soon became familiar with everyone under the leadership of Xiaopeng. After breakfast, Li Hei started to prepare the car, and then went to the room to wake up Mei Shui. Mei Shui looked angry after getting up. That man didn't have enough to eat every day. I really didn't know how he could be in such good health. Get up and pack up, go to the front yard, meet Huanian Chen, Mei Shui, and everyone start getting ready to go after breakfast. This time I went to Bama village mainly to deal with matters related to the beginning of spring. Meixiu didn't have time to play with them. Along the way, Mei Shui observed the surrounding environment. Also chatted with Xiaobai about the arrangements here. Mei Shui became even more happy when she learned that there was a reservoir in the back mountain. Xiaobai, let's find the source later, and then start putting crystals in just like Hejia village and Shenzhen city. Then we won't have to worry about the water source. Mei Shui consciously chatted with Xiaobai. This is no problem, but there are many villages around here. If you, master, put it at the source, other villages will definitely be affected. It's not that it is too defensive, but the human heart is too frightening. Mei Shui thought for a while, but it can't be explained by putting it in the reservoir. If someone discovers it, the reservoir will definitely be targeted. Now, Mei Shui is becoming more and more careful. What's the big deal? The reservoir is so big. Besides, the reservoir is not like the reservoir in Hejiakan. It was built by man. It was formed naturally here. Xiaobai told the owner what he had learned. What do you mean? Mei Shui didn't understand. Can the reservoir be repaired by humans? The reservoir in Hejia village was built by many people over many years to store water for the surrounding villages, but it is different here. Xiaobai changed into a comfortable position in Mei Shui's arms and continued, "This place is naturally formed. No one knows what is going on underneath. Besides, it is a good thing that the water in the reservoir deteriorates. Even if someone discovers it, haven't we contracted this reservoir for 70 years, Xiaobai had already thought of a solution. We are not stupid. We can't take advantage of others when the surrounding areas are not used for our own purposes. And the most important thing is that there are less and less spiritual crystals. We have to use them sparingly." Xiaobai now sleeps by holding the spiritual crystals. Mei Shui listened for a long time and finally understood Xiaobai's intention. Do you have any good ideas?" Mei Shui asked, patting Xiaobai's hair. "What else can I do? Just put a small piece. It will last for at least 10 years. When the time comes, we will put it in again. There is no need to put in a big piece at once." Thinking of the 2 pieces it put in, my heart ached. "Cheng, I'll listen to you. Let Xiahong's descendants go free when the time comes. You are a landlubber with the solution." Mei Shui was in the mood to tease Xiaobai. "No, I can do it too." Xiaobai wouldn't admit it. "Besides, its cultivation is still very simple." "Okay, then I'll leave this matter to you again. Remember to be careful and don't get discovered." Mei Shui really believed it. "But master, after the spiritual crystal is put down, the situation around the reservoir will definitely change a lot. Don't you think it's a waste to leave it empty?" Xiaobai still remembers what the old lady said at home. "You think?" Mei Shui's eyes lit up. "You plan to let me build a house around the reservoir?" She is not stupid. "Of course, living here will not only prolong life, but at least reduce illness. It would be even more perfect if the spiritual crystal could be used. You can also make a lot of money." Xiaobai didn't forget to add. Mei Shui knocked Xiaobai's head hard. "You are the only one who knows more." There was indeed not much money in her hand. She still has to prepare some money for her children. "Of course, I am the most considerate little cotton-padded jacket of the master. You are a man. We spiritual beasts are not divided into men and women." Shameless. Speechless. After arriving at the destination, Mei Shui said that she had something to do today and asked An Yang to come over and accompany everyone. Everyone has no objections. They know that Xiaoxiu has invested a lot of money at home and must be busy with a lot of things. This was Huan Yanshan's first time in such an environment, and he was very curious about everything. His mother was a single parent, but the conditions at home were not bad. The living environment of a small family is not like that in a rural area. Since he and Xiaopeng are classmates, everyone gets along more naturally, and they almost forget that he is Uncle Shi's son. It is a joy to play one by one. And Mei Shui came to the back mountain with Xiaobai in her arms. After seeing what was going on at the reservoir, Mei Shui was happy. "It seems like this is a good place to build a house, Xiaobai," Mei Shui said, pointing to the flat land around the reservoir. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 423. Chapter 423, The more you earn, the more you spend. "Master, aren't you afraid that the house will be flooded when it rains?" Xiaobai was speechless. "Look, although this is grassland, the soil here can be wet. It will definitely not work if you lay a foundation here. At a glance, you can tell that it was formed after the water receded." Mei Shui really doesn't know much about building a house. "Then where do you want to build it?" Mei Shui sighed. "Build around the mountains. This place is surrounded by mountains and fields, and since there are so many rented, it's not bad at all." Mei Shui had a headache when she saw it, and she thought it would be better to leave this matter to An Yang. There are also many holiday houses that can be built under the dam. Mei Shui made a plan in her mind and took out a piece of spiritual crystal from the space. "Go, remember to keep it hidden." Mei Shui handed the spirit crystal to Xiaobai. After watching Xiaobai enter the water, Mei Shui shook her body. She felt so cold. After Xiaobai left, Mei Shui went to find An Yang, and she planned to discuss it with him. When I went down, I saw children playing in the fields. After getting closer, Mei Shui smiled. "Aren't you cold? It's still cold in Kyoto at this time." "Mom, look, I caught a big loach." Xiao Cheng emerged from nowhere. Looking at the things in his hands, Mei Shui smiled. It had been a while since she had eaten these wild eels and loaches. "Catch more, we will cook and eat in the village at noon." Mei Shui patted Xiao Cheng's head. When they heard that they would eat these they caught for lunch, everyone became very enthusiastic. After the news reached everyone's ears, everyone worked harder. When I found Yang, he was playing with his son. "I'll give it to Grandma." "Obviously come with me to the reservoir," Mei Shui said to Yang. Yang looked at his sister-in-law. What happened? He was a little confused because the emotion on his sister-in-law's face seemed a little wrong. The old lady and the old man were also nearby. When they saw Mei Shui's appearance, they stopped talking. "Xiaoxiu, what happened?" they both asked together. Meixia shook her head. "It's okay. Last time, Grandma said she wanted to come and live in the village for a few days. I just took a look and thought the house being built over the reservoir is pretty good. It's not suitable to say more." He Anyang understood immediately. He Anyang's eyes lit up when he thought of the house next to the hot spring in the village. "Grandma, take Mingming to me, my sister-in-law, and I will go over and take a look." The old man understood immediately when he saw them like this. "Xiaoxiu, let's make a deal first. You have to leave one house for me." For the old man. Mei Shui was speechless. She started thinking about it even before she started practicing. "Let's talk about it. Grandpa, you and Grandma keep an eye on the children. And Yang and I will go to the back mountain to have a look." By the time Mei Shui and Hians came over, Xiaobai had come out of the water. But there was something next to it. Mei Shui didn't know what it was, but Xiaobai was shouting excitedly in her mind. "Master, Master, look what I found." Mei Shui was speechless. How did she know what it was? "What?" Xiaobai still asked cooperatively. And Yang was much more positive than Mei Shui. He immediately ran over to Xiaobai when he saw him. "Xiaobai, why did you go into the water? Aren't you afraid of the cold?" And Yang asked worriedly when he saw that Xiaobai's body was very wet. "We have been together for so many years, and he has long regarded Xiaobai as his good friend. Xiaobai enjoyed being cared for, but unfortunately, and Yang couldn't hear what it said. "Okay, don't worry about it, let's see what it is." Mei Shui pointed to something not far from Anyang's feet. He Anyang then focused his attention on the box not far away from Xiaobai. "What is this?" He picked up Xiaobai and took 2 steps forward. "How do I know?" Xiaobai didn't say anything. Mei Shui also walked over and squatted down. As soon as they got closer, a scent of fragrance rushed into their noses. "It smells so good." This was the first time He Anyang smelled such a fragrant smell. Meixia didn't miss it either, but the fragrance was a bit strange, because it actually shook the breath in her body. This was the first time she had seen it. If Xiaobai had a face, he would definitely show a look of arrogance. He brought this thing up just because he discovered such a change. "Master, do you feel it?" Xiaobai jumped out of Anyang's arms and touched the box with his little paw. Mei Shui immediately reached for it and took it over. It was a bit heavy. "Do you know this thing?" Mei Shui squinted at Xiaobai. There are outsiders here, so there are many things she can't ask. Without waiting for Xiaobai to reply, He Anyang became curious. "Sister-in-law, open it quickly and see what kind of treasure is inside." Having seen more, he guessed that it must be some kind of antique inside. The price of antiques is not low nowadays. Here Mei Shui didn't have many treasures, so she handed the thing directly to Anyang's hand. "If you want to know, open it yourself. Don't show off too much." He Anyang didn't see anyone outside and observed directly, but he couldn't find the opening of the box after even looking at it. "Sister-in-law, this thing is not just a piece of wood, it's just a little fragrant and a little heavier. I don't know much about this stuff." Maybe Mei Shui took it. Okay, let's talk about building a house. The two began to discuss how to build a nursing home here. He Anyang also expressed his opinion. After all, he had learned from it and was much better than Mei Shui. Then I'll leave this matter to you. You can discuss it with Mr. Zhang then. But will the old man be here soon? Mei Shui knew that the old man was coming to Kyoto. Hurry, come here when things stabilize here. He Anyang wants to manage the affairs of the village. If he lives in the village, he must live in the village. He hasn't even taken care of things yet. Then hurry up and don't keep the old man waiting. The old man has waited long enough. Well, now that the roads are open, I will build a house in the village first. It will be more convenient to live in then. Okay, but the work in the fields must be started. There are not enough people in the village. It seems that you have to find a way on your own. Mei Shui had no choice about this matter. It's okay, I've seen it a long time ago. There are many villages around. If we raise the wage rate, there will definitely be a lot of people coming here. Besides, we not only need strong workers, but also some women to grow vegetables. Such people are good, please. He Anyang has managed the base for such a long time, and plans for these things were quickly made. Then, you have to figure it out yourself. Do you still have enough money on hand? The old man asked the superiors to allocate some money for road construction, but she paid most of it herself. Mei Shui gave all the money and everything directly to He Anyang. After counting, he was afraid that he didn't have much money in his hand. There are still more than 100,000, which will definitely not be enough to repair a house or something. After hearing that the money was not enough, Mei Shui's brows tightened again. I will transfer some money to you tomorrow, so you can save some money. The family has no money. She didn't know how much money other people in business earned. But she earns more and spends more. Now she really doesn't have much money for live traps, and she feels so poor. Sister-in-law, you can't save some money. If you still want to build a house around here, and you need the help of the old man, the money will definitely not be enough. He Anyang looked very ugly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 424. Chapter 424, Never Played in Mud. Mei Shui opened her mouth to ask the old man not to interfere, but she swallowed the words as she reached her lips. Let's not talk about it until then. The vegetable fields and farmland will definitely produce this year, otherwise we won't be able to afford the loss. She was really annoyed. That's no problem as long as the seeds and labor are in place, there will definitely be a harvest this year. Are you worried that you will have no money after you have harvested? That's it? You go down and do your work. I'll stay here for a while. Mei Shui wanted to know more about this box-like thing. Sure, sister-in-law, don't go into the mountains. This place hasn't been specially cleaned up yet. You know, this is half a mountain. Who knows if there might be some large animals in there. Well, I won't go into the mountains. She really had no intention of going today. After He Anyang left, Mei Shui found a clean place to sit down and put Xiaobai on the ground. Tell me why this thing causes turmoil in my body. Xiaobai said before that with their current level of skill, it would be extremely difficult to increase it. But just after smelling it, it was obvious that there was some turmoil in the internal energy. Xiaobai raised his head and said proudly, Master, thank me quickly. This is a good thing. If I hadn't gone into the water, I might not have been able to find this good thing. Whether it is the owner or it seems to be fixed. No matter how strong it is still afraid of the law of heaven. Once the way of heaven has fixed them, if they want to go further, it will be extremely difficult to break through the sky. They may not be able to achieve it in this life. But now, with this thing in front of me, there might be a glimmer of hope. Say something useful. Mei Shui took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Master, do you know what this is? Xiaobai asked without fear of death. Mei Shui glared at Xiaobai. I want to know what I need you for. Huh, that's a shame. Xiaobai was frightened when his master glared at him. Master, this is called the soul wood. It can solidify the soul and strengthen a person's soul. This thing is a rare treasure for practicing. Xiaobai told Mei Shui what he knew. Originally, it was difficult for you and the master to go further, but it's different now. It just didn't expect that there is such a treasure in this world. Oh, what do you say? Of course she knew that he and Hians had reached the peak of their inner strength. No matter how many elixirs you take or how diligently you practice, the inner strength in your body can never be shaken even a little bit. But now, you also know that among the levels of cultivation, there is foundation building above Xiantian, but you and the male master are stuck at the Xiantian level and cannot go any further. Xiaobai once again helped Mei Shui learn about science. But it's difficult to build the base. It's not about how much spiritual medicine you take, how much spiritual water you drink, or how much you cultivate your internal strength. It depends on whether God gives you a chance. Things like the soul wood are the vitality that God left behind. It is very difficult to form a divine soul wood. If it were in ancient times, it would not be difficult. But now, everything is just a legend. Maybe many people don't know this legend. For example, now, even if you take this wood out, others will only regard it as a piece of wood that emits fragrance, and they will not know how valuable it is. The soul wood is used to condense the soul. After the energy reaches a certain bottleneck, the soul must be trained. How strong a person's soul is, how far he can go. Even if you are limited by the laws of heaven, you can still find a way out. After listening, Mei Shui smiled. Then what are you waiting for? Go down and search again to see if you can find more good things. I'm afraid it's not simple here. You know, this reservoir is naturally formed. Xiaobai was speechless, but he was obedient and entered the water again. The spiritual crystal was placed here. Mei Shui was worried that a large animal would come out, so she released a red-black snake from the space. Lingzi is not as good as Xiahong's, but he still has Lingzi. I'll call you Xiaoai from now on. You will be in charge of managing this place from now on. There must be no big animals hurting people. A child's arm is thick. The black snake in red was wrapped around Mei Shui's hand. He raised his head and looked at his master. After hearing what his master said, he nodded. Go put Xiaoai on the ground and let it move on its own. Xiaoai was very reluctant to leave her master and turned around 3 times. Go, maybe I will live here in the future, and there will be many opportunities to meet, Mei Shui said, waving her hand. Xiaoai was very happy when she heard that her master would come to live in the house. He twisted his body and disappeared in front of people. It took a while for Xiaobai to enter the water this time. Mei Shui sent a message to ask, and found out that it was still looking around. She felt relieved and told it that she would go down the mountain first and pick it up later. After hearing Xiaobai's agreement, Mei Shui took the piece of soulwood into the space and left the reservoir directly. In the village, the children were still waiting for her to make lunch. With more people, we are more powerful, and we have caught quite a few loaches and eels. Looking at the things in the bucket, Mei Shui's head is huge. Are you going to eat all of these? 2 large barrels were filled with loaches and eels. The children all gathered together and guarded their achievements. Mom, let's do it all. We can finish it. Xiao Cheng looked excited. He hadn't grabbed these things for a long time. Mom, let me help you. Xiao rolled up his sleeves and joined in directly. Not only him, Gu Jiaja and others also took action. Except for Xiao, none of these people have ever done such work. Come on, Ran will stay and help me wash the vegetables, and Xiao will help me kill these eels and loaches together. You all should go away and don't get in the way here when cooking. There is no strength in numbers. Everyone was shocked when they were disliked, but with Xiaopeng and Xiaocheng taking the lead, they scattered in all directions after a while. Huan Nianchen felt the joy of childhood for the first time. He Shipeng, did you all play like this when you were kids? Huan Nianchen's face, hair, and clothes were all stained with mud. Xiaopeng looked up at him and said, didn't you play with mud when you were a child? He was a little surprised. Even brother Gaoji and others played it when they were young. Huan Nianchen shook his head. Since he was sensible, he has spent most of his time taking care of his sick mother, or reading books or watching TV with her. This is the first time for me to play like this. Even the activities in school are not so lively. Seeing him shaking his head, Xiaopeng was speechless. It seems that you are a poor person, and you have never played with mud. He even smashed fish when he was a child. So, for some unknown reason, Xiaopeng began to talk to Huan Nianchen about what he had done when he was a child. Especially when he was a child, he went to steal things with Uncle An Liang and the others during the Mid-Autumn Festival, which he said deeply and excitingly. Even though she is 10 years old now, Huan Nianchen still yearns to do this again. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 425. Chapter 425, Two Old Men Quarreling. Will you go back to your hometown for the Mid-Autumn Festival this year? If so, he would also like to go. Looking at Huan Nianchen's starry eyes, Xiaopeng was very proud and said, I won't go. She must have given him a reply. Sure enough, after hearing this answer, Huan Nianchen looked disappointed. But if you want to experience it, why don't we wait for the festival and let's go steal the wives' things together? They have a lot of treasures and even hide red envelopes. Xiaopeng has done this before. However, I will still tell the adults after stealing. Can you still play like this? Huan Nianchen looked surprised. Of course, we have a lot to play with, let me tell you. After saying that, Xiaopeng took out a medicine bottle from his arms. Started to instigate Huan Nianchen to come. Mrs. He and Uncle Shi, who were not far away from them, directly listened to their conversation. Xiaopeng is still so evil-minded, huh? I got caught last time, Uncle Shi said with an unhappy look on his face as he watched him instigating his great-grandson. Oh, it's because you don't have the ability. Don't blame the children for being too smart. Xiaopeng used to experiment with outsiders, but since his medicine matured, he began to play with his relatives. Fortunately, his parents and his wife did not dare to attack him, so they could only attack a few old men. Mr. Shi and Mr. Hua were hit the most times. Of course, it's because Xiaopeng has no intention of harming others, that's why everyone plays with him. Xiaopeng doesn't do it harshly, he just makes people uncomfortable for a short time. Looking at the older girl's eyes, the old man shouted angrily, that's because you didn't get hit. If you did, you'd know how powerful it is. I almost died from itching last time. Thinking about that feeling, the old man felt numb all over. Xiaopeng can be said to be the most disliked person among several people. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm his wife. If he dares to attack me, let's see if I don't beat him to death, the old lady said happily. Glancing at the two children, the old lady sighed, this child has never experienced happiness at first glance. You should pay more attention to it in the future. This child is so distressing. Xiao has long been sensible, and he was seriously injured, but he found his adoptive parents and their family, and each of them healed his injured heart with true love. So he is more happy than ordinary people, but like Huan Nianchen, he is not unhappy, nor unhappy, but he looks at the sadness on his mother's face every day, and no matter how many emotions he has, he cannot express it. From being sad at the beginning to being calm now, he has experienced too many things and has too many suppressed emotions. There is a difference between precocity and maturity. Xiao and his three brothers are precocious, while Huan Nianchen is mature. Forced to mature. So, I thought about letting him have more contact with Xiaopeng and the others, and it would be best to change his temper. It's not that he is bad, but that he is so good that it makes people feel bad. Children who are 10 years old suppress their emotions, which is not good. Don't even think about coming to live in my house, and don't look at how many people live in my house now. The old lady immediately became defensive. Just now I was a good elder, but suddenly I changed. The old man said angrily, "Humph, you're a cheapskate. I'm not afraid of drinking cold water. My stomach and intestines are fine." The old lady glanced at him sideways and continued with a complacent expression. "Can't you have some sympathy, mister?" She tried again. "No, what is sympathy? I just have a black heart, a black heart," the old lady replied with bared teeth. "Well, the two over there were discussing who to play for a while, but my wife and the others started to quarrel here. Their voices alarmed everyone. But everyone took one look and ignored it. Let each one do what he should do. Only Huanian Chen was a little worried. "Madam, why are they quarreling?" He wanted to get up and take a look. Seeing him like this, Xiaopeng grabbed him and said, "Come on, it's strange that they don't make any noise. Every time, you have to get used to it. This is a small noise. You haven't seen MRS Sun, MRS Wu, MRS Hua and the others. When we are together, the noisy ones are the ones who are fierce." Xiaopeng said with a look of surprise. "Why?" Huanian Chen was a little confused. Xiaopeng looked at him, and then returned to Uncle Weiken's matter, and he understood, "This quarrel must be about you, but I don't know what your wife has in mind." "For me?" Huanian Chen didn't understand even more. "For what?" "It's because MRS he doesn't want me to join the historian's family," Huanian Chen said the next words very lightly. No matter how little you think about who Xiaopeng is, of course you can hear him and slap him on the head when you see him thinking nonsense, even if he is older than you. "What are you thinking about? It must be your wife's idea of my family. My wife didn't want it, so they started to quarrel." Huanian Chen was even more confused. "Why are you trying to attack your family because of me?" He wasn't very clear about the background of the Shi family because his mother never told him. Of course, it's not that Huaziqian doesn't want to say it, but she doesn't necessarily know it herself. Xiaopeng felt that he couldn't explain clearly at the moment. "You can go back and ask your dad, but don't worry, MRS she will not succeed." He looked confident. Huanian Chen was stunned. He was still a little worried about that. "Don't look at it. They won't stop if you look at them. It'll be fine when you eat." His mother was cooking today, and MRS she couldn't bear to eat it. "Is it really okay?" "Fine." Seeing that he still looked unconvinced, Xiaopeng had no choice but to pull him over. "Madam, MRS she, have you finished your quarrel?" Huanian Chen was so worried that she almost cried. Xiaopeng directly sold the person. Huanian Chen was speechless. Is there anyone who betrays others like this? But he was really worried. So the two old men turned their heads away and did not look at each other. "Grandma," he felt sorry for the child and took his hand. "What are you worried about? Don't worry, MRS he will not make your wife mad to death. That person who speaks is called a man with a gun and a stick. Mr. Shi is not behind either. No, Xiaoxiu won't make delicious food for me if she is so angry. It's not worth the loss." He. After hearing their conversation, Huanian Chen finally understood some of what Xiaopeng said. "As long as it's okay." "Of course it's okay, even if something happens, it's not me." Grandma, he looked proud. "Uncle Shi will not be left behind." "It's not me either," he insisted. Xiaopeng found an opportunity to wink at Huanian Chen, and then he ran away. Huanian Chen was caught in Grandma He's hand and couldn't run away. She had to accompany the two old people to bicker with each other. She also asked him to help spread the word. They sat facing each other. Couldn't they hear her? How childish. He feels so regretful. Can he not come over? Lunch was prepared quickly and easily. There were so many eels and loaches, and it was enough for them to eat. Made a soup, stir-fried, deep-fried, stir-fried vegetables and a big pot of rice. A dozen or so people started eating. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 426. Chapter 426, The Medicine is Wrong. However, Mei Shui was a little worried about Xiaobai. Seeing that it hadn't come back yet, Mei Shui couldn't help but call out in her consciousness. Master, I can't find it. It was obviously found not far from the edge of the spiritual crystal, but now, it is all mud and there is nothing. Even the mark on the box just now is gone. If you can't find it, come back. It's a great opportunity to get such a big piece. Mei Shui is also a person who is not greedy. Of course, she is not interested in becoming an immortal or a god. In her world, no one seeks immortality, but how many succeed? Whether it is history or anything else, no one succeeds, everyone dies, and the grave site cannot be preserved after death. She does not seek immortality. She is very satisfied with her current strength. At least no one can hurt them except the hot weapons. Master, I want to look for it again. Xiao Bai secretly wanted to live longer. It came from that era and has a more straightforward understanding of immortality. It knows that it is not a legend. It's up to you, but if you can't find it, go back to space. Mei Shui ignored it. Compared to the excitement in Bema village, Shi Weiken's place is very rough. Early in the morning, after the old man picked him up, he went upstairs and wanted to express his feelings to the woman he loved. After finally understanding the pain of my beloved over the years, I was about to comfort her when the phone rang. The hemostatic medicine sent last time came out, but no matter what they did, they were still not as good as the samples made by Xiao and the others, which made the researchers very sad. Crying that the formula and medicine are wrong. No, Hua Tongfang called Shi Weiken and asked him to go back to the company as soon as possible. I just met my beloved, and I was interrupted by the phone in a hurry to say 2 sentences. Shi Weiken was called unhappy, but he also knew that he was so anxious. Zichen, if you have any questions about the company, please contact me. Shi Weiken looked at Hua Zichen with a grieved look on his face. Looking at him like this, Hua Zichen knew that something big must have happened, otherwise he wouldn't be so anxious. If you have something to do, go and do it first. It just so happens that Nian Chen is not at home today, so I can rest, Hua Zichen said very considerately. But Shi Weiken couldn't bear to be separated from her now, even a minute seemed long to him. How about you go to the company with me? Since you don't want to leave it, it's better to take it with you. Hua Zichen was actually very reluctant to part with her. After not seeing each other for many years, there seemed to be no barrier between them, and they were still as close to each other as before. Will this bother you? She was still a little worried. It's okay, they are the ones disturbing us. After saying that, Shi Weiken picked up the man and took him directly away from home. The development of Fahrenheit Group is very good, at least it is very famous here in Kyoto. The company is located in the center of Kyoto. The surrounding area is very prosperous and the people coming in and out are also very busy. As soon as she arrived downstairs, Hua Zichen felt a little frightened. How about I wait for you downstairs? Hua Zichen said shyly as soon as she got off the car. How could Shi Weiken let her go? No, go in and let them see what their boss lady looks like, and let those married people envy me. He looked arrogant. If the person involved was not herself, Hua Zichen would feel that the person in front of her was really arrogant. In the end, I couldn't stand him anymore and followed him all the way to his office. Everyone in the company was very curious when they saw their boss leading a woman in. Because they all know that there is a boss in the company who has been thinking about this young and talented boss. Everyone started talking, that woman has such a good temperament. Yes, I saw that everyone was born in a family, and I don't know whose family they belong to, but they were deceived by the third boss. Of course Hwazikian didn't hear these remarks, but looking at the eyes that looked at her, she knew what they were thinking without having to guess. But, so what, she believed him. Hua Tongfang has been waiting for Shi Weikan in the office for a long time. After all, this prescription was taken over from the Shi family. If there is any problem, he will definitely go to him as soon as possible. Uncle Zhao is also here, but he is not in a hurry and has 100% trust in the prescriptions given by the He family. Besides, the problem of wrong medicine definitely does not lie with the He family. Just stop turning. Didn't Weikan say he'll be there soon? You're making me dizzy. Uncle Zhao couldn't stand it anymore. This kid was not calm at all. Fortunately, he didn't manage the company. Uncle Zhao and Shi Weikan are the company's managers, while Hua Tongfang manages the company's R&D department. Stays in the laboratory on weekdays and rarely appears in front of others. But everyone in the company also knows him, so who makes him one of the bosses? Uncle Zhao, aren't you worried? Of course Hua Tongfang also believes in the He family, but this time the matter is a bit involved, and if one person is not good, everyone will have a hard time. What are you worried about? Uncle Zhao glared at him. I tell you, your research room should be sorted out, and some people should take action. Don't think he doesn't know, there are many people inside who are eyeing their piece of fat. Hua Tongfang felt a little embarrassed when he heard this. Uncle Zhao, give me some face. If they are really responsible for this incident, I will definitely not be lenient. Even if that person is his teacher. It's good that you know it yourself. I'm not worried about you. I'm just worried about giving someone else an advantage in the end. You also know how important this prescription is. Making military pharmaceuticals is not just about making money, there are many benefits. In addition, the historians of the Zhao family all followed the military path. With such a relationship, the future generations of the family will have an easier path. Uncle Zhao Hua Tongfang was speechless. Is he so unimportant? It's useless to call me. Have you found out what I asked you to check? Uncle Zhao is a good man. He glanced sideways at Hua Tongfang and started drinking tea. When it came to business, Hua Tongfang finally sat down and said, after checking, it's really not them this time. He originally thought that the teacher might have tampered with it, but unfortunately it wasn't. That's good, but you have to get rid of these restless people, otherwise you and I will not be able to bear the consequences. He figured it out, that person was using the name of teacher to overshadow Hua Tongfang. Well, last time we discussed with Mei Shui about developing some medicinal cosmetics. I think this prospect is still very good. I'll just let them manage it when the time comes. He gave the opportunity. If it didn't work out. If Xiaoxiu knew that you used her prescription as a test stone, do you think she would still cooperate with you? Zhao Shuyi said playfully. Don't, Uncle Zhao, you can't cheat me. When Hua Tongfang heard this, his whole body went numb. Please don't, because then he will make too much less money. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 427. Chapter 427, Introduction. Now he is a man who is getting married. He has a family to support and will have children in the future. Then stand up. What are you doing? Uncle Zhao looked down upon him. Not at all like his old man. Don't worry, I will take care of them. Hua Tongfang also knew what his weaknesses were, but as Uncle Zhao said, there were consequences that he couldn't bear. Not long after, Shi Weikan walked in with Hwazikian. When he saw the people in the room, their little hands holding each other still did not separate. Instead, Shi Weikan raised his hand. Let me introduce you to my wife, Hwazikian, and the mother of my child. The introduction was a proud one. Uncle Zhao and Hua Tongfang were stunned. Hey, where did you borrow your wife? Don't give it back then. Hua Tongfang had just received teaching from Uncle Zhao, and he was very angry. If you borrow anything from my family, you are allowed to have a wife, but you can't let me have one. Shi Weikan rolled his eyes at him. Go to the sofa next to Uncle Zhao and sit down, Ziyiqian, this is Uncle Zhao. Even though Hua Ziqian is almost 30, her face is well kept, and she looks shy in front of her lover. Uncle Zhao, the voice called weakly. Uncle Zhao knew Shi Weikan, and he also knew Hua Qiuyan in the company. Now it seems that Weikan is more comfortable with the girl in front of him. Hello, the smile on Uncle Zhao's face was as warm as the spring breeze. The same person who taught Hua Tongfang a lesson just now is exactly the same person. His appearance is usually only seen in front of Mei Shui. Uncle Zhao, what happened? I didn't explain clearly on the phone, Shi Weikan asked after comforting Hua Ziqian. Hua Tongfang was angry when he saw him neglecting himself in this way. Hey, isn't this good? Why don't you introduce me to a living person like me? Hua Tongfang said, dissatisfied. Shi Weikan glanced at him and rolled his eyes. You don't believe it, why should I introduce it to you if you don't believe it? You can tell from this tone that they have a good relationship. Hua Ziqian can be considered a member of the family, and she is not weak in the field of human relations. So she took the initiative and said, hello, my name is Hua Ziqian. Seeing her like this, Shi Weikan's little bit of dissatisfaction with Hua Tongfang disappeared. Humph, just ignore him. He's just such a virtuous person. You don't need to know him anyway. Just look at me, Shi Weikan said a little bitterly. Looking at him like this, Uncle Zhao and Hua Tongfang knew his attitude. Haha, this is just a joke. As cold as you are, I really can't think of anyone who would like you, except that person. When he said the second half of the sentence, Hua Tongfang looked disgusted. Hua Ziqian glanced at Shi Weikan and smiled. Shi Weikan was anxious, don't listen to his nonsense. I'm so clean. I don't have anyone else to look at except you. After saying this, he didn't forget to glare at Hua Tongfang. Uncle Zhao smiled and said, okay, let's not talk about this for now. Let's talk about the business first. If this matter can't be handled well, I'm afraid your old man will also be in trouble. Uncle Zhao quickly changed the topic. Seeing that they were talking about business, Hua Ziqian shut up and stopped asking any more questions, but she still felt a little uneasy. Not only was she worried, but Shi Weikan was also worried. Apart from glaring at Hua Tongfang, he could only comfort his lover. Hold her hands tightly, not daring to let go for a moment, just for fear of her thinking. Tongfang, tell me, how is the effect different? The three of them did not avoid Hua Ziqian in their conversation. Except for the prescription, nothing else was too important and there was nothing to avoid. Hua Ziqian wanted to leave, but Shi Weikan wouldn't let her. The final result of the discussion on this matter was to ask Xiao and others to come over for guidance, which is ridiculous to say. They are doctors of medicine, and they actually asked two children to teach them. I wonder if it will scare that group of people. But Uncle Zhao disagreed. Tongfang, it's impossible to ask Xiao and the others to come over. You also know that the old man only came here with the prescription. Uncle Zhao glared at Hua Tongfang. He felt more and more that the child's mind was broken. What should we do? Hua Tongfang felt so tired. What's so difficult about this? They can't come, so can't you go? It just so happens that Grandpa is at his house tonight, Shi Weikan said with a smile. What? Uncle Zhao exclaimed, did your grandpa put forward some conditions again? And then Xiaoxiu agreed, you can't blame him, he also wanted to have a meal at his house. But I never had the chance or the time. He has regretted it for a long time. Who knew that running a company would be so busy? He might as well have opened a restaurant before. Well, Grandpa took my Nian Chen to play with Xiaopeng and the others today. Shi Weikan began to show off his son. Your family is Nian Chen? Who is it? Hua Tongfang and Uncle Zhao asked in unison. My son Shi Weikan said with pride, he is 10 years old this year. He seems to be half a year older than Xiaopeng and the others. So, Uncle Zhao and Hua Tong were turned into stone. Looking at his childish appearance, Hua Ziqian pinched his palm hard. This little pain was like an itch to Shi Weikan, and it actually made his heart itch too. Looking at her, losing so many years, he really missed her. Rather than wasting time here, it would be better to go home and give Nian Chen a younger brother or sister. Of course, he dared to think this way and did not dare to take action. He had hurt her earlier, and now he did not want her to be hurt at all. But in order to get the beauty back as soon as possible, we should take action on everything about marriage. After the matter was decided, Shi Weikan took Hua Ziqian directly out of the office. It's a pity that some people are just so short-sighted. Are you okay? Looking at the person standing in front of them, Shi Weikan frowned so hard that he almost pinched mosquitoes. Huakaoyan was originally said by those who did not believe it. She wanted to come and see for herself. Actually, it was one thing not to believe it, but she was very panicked in her heart. But when she actually saw the person, she was dumbfounded. When she saw her in her last life, she was in a hospital bed, and she was about to die. Just didn't expect it. Weikan, are you leaving? Huakaoyan put away the surprise on her face and immediately became gentle. Then wait for me, I will go with you. Today Grandpa also said that he would ask Grandpa Shi to play. I'll just go back and send Grandpa there. Speaking like how close they are. Shi Weikan consciously distanced himself from the person in front of him. No, if Grandpa Hua wants to find Grandpa, he may wait until later. Grandpa is not at home today. Hua Ziqian smiled and said nothing the whole time and left it to him. Ah, Grandpa Shi is not at home. Grandpa will definitely be sad if he knows about it. Huakaoyan seemed to be unable to see his alienation from her. On the contrary, we became more and more intimate when talking. Let outsiders know at a glance that among the three of them, Hua Ziqian is the outsider. Then please stay with me more. I have something to do today, so we'll leave first. Shi Weikan didn't want to talk to her. Besides, he and her had nothing to say. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 428. Chapter 428, Divorce. Weikan, don't leave in a hurry. I went out today and didn't drive. Can you give me a ride back? Only Huakaoyan knew how angry she was now. Originally, I wanted to wait until the end of the month before taking action, but now it seems. The calculation flashed in his eyes. What a pity, everyone can see it. Not only Shi Weikan saw it, Hua Ziqian beside him didn't miss it at all. I also understand it in my heart. I don't have time. I'm going to take my wife to pick up my son today. My family has been very busy recently. If Grandpa Hua wants to find Grandpa, he may have to wait for some time. Historians are not something that others can get into if they want. Hearing this, some people passing by were very surprised, but they were responsible. Leave after listening. There was only Huakaoyan, and he stood there stupidly, as if he had been struck. Looking weak and aggrieved. It seemed as if the two people in front of her had done many things that were sorry to her. What a pity, the theater-goers have changed. Why haven't you left yet? Hua Tongfang and Uncle Zhao happened to meet the three of them when they came out. I was about to leave, but I was stopped by someone. Shi Weikan looked aggrieved. Uncle Zhao sighed, you can still be stopped in your own company. You are really capable. After saying that, Uncle Zhao looked at Huakaoyan. Everyone was not blind and could see what this girl was thinking. From the very beginning, they felt that this girl had something wrong with her eyes and that she was a deep person. They also wanted to remind Shi Weikan that fortunately he was not blind. The company didn't invite you here to be a doorman. Why are you stopping here? If you don't want to do it, leave. Don't use the old man to pressure me. The old man has no say here. Shi Weikun couldn't refute his grandfather, but Uncle Zhao dared. Of course, this is the only place I dare to go. If he were at home, he would definitely be better behaved than Shi Weikun. Mr. Zhao Huakaoyan was full of hatred. It's useless to call anyone, and this is not a place for you to come. Uncle Zhao is ruthless. Huakaoyan looked at Shi Weikun, thinking that he could say something for herself, but it was a pity that he was focused on another woman. Let's go get something to eat later, and then go find Nian Chen and the others. Okay, the voice should be as gentle as possible. Yes, Huakaoyan didn't want to be embarrassed anymore. As soon as the others left, Uncle Zhao patted two Shi Weikuns on the back angrily. Don't be sorry. After saying that, he nodded with Hua Ziqian and left. Hua Tongfang looked like he was not finished watching the show. Falling flowers have feelings and flowing water has no intention. This man really owes a lot. Shi Weikun fulfilled his wish without saying a word. Hey, can you be gentler? Hua Tongfang screamed angrily after being beaten. I'm afraid you won't remember it. After saying that, he took Hua Ziqian and left the company. Back in the car, Hua Ziqian kept looking at him with a smile, which made Shi Weikun go crazy. It was always like this before, no matter if it was his fault or not, she always looked at herself with this look, which made him want to eat her. He put his hand on her eyes and said, Ziqian, don't look at me like that, I won't be able to help it. After saying that, he kissed her hard. Hua Ziqian's face turned red when he did this to her. Shameless. Shi Weikun smiled and kissed her hand. She is a painter. The old painter and his grandfather were playmates when he was young, and the two had a childhood relationship. Shi Weikun explained to Hua Ziqian what had just happened. After hearing this, Hua Ziqian also smiled. It seems that you are still so popular, even when you were in school. When she said this, her heart and eyes were full of sourness. Haha, but, I only like you. Soon the two of them became entangled in the car. After Huakaoyan left, she immediately returned home. The woman showed up. No, she didn't have time. She has to think about what to do next. Or do you send them to like you did in your previous life? She wants to discuss it with someone. Painter, the painter's mother's brother came over early this morning. It happens to block people at home. Sign it, everyone will look good. The painter's mother's brother had been enduring this for a long time. The painter's mother's maiden name is Song, and her maiden name is Jingjing, which fits her personality very well, being gentle and quiet. The painter was a little unsure when his brother-in-law arrived, but now he was even more frightened after seeing what he had brought out. The painter's father glanced at the things on the table, and then turned his attention to the painter's mother. Are you serious? He may not have noticed it, but he was shaking violently when he asked this question. Huamu raised her head and smiled. What do you think? She had already told him. It's just that he doesn't believe it. Okay, don't waste time. You can rest assured. We don't want any of your painter's things, but she can't let go of the things that should be quiet. We will leave them all to our two children, which can be regarded as fulfilling her last bit of motherly love. The eldest brother of the Song family has long disliked the two nieces and nephews. The old man was sitting calmly in his seat, as if the matter had nothing to do with him. But when he heard that the property was going to be divided, his eyes widened and he looked directly at the Song brothers and sisters. You knew what was going on back then. Is it too much to divide the family's wealth now? Mr. Hua said the first words the eldest brother of the Song family said after he entered the house. Brother Song didn't hesitate. Of course I know. My father told me when I came here that if people from the Song family are bullied outside, they should be bullied back home. The voice was loud and clear. The Song family usually doesn't show off, but they do a lot of things secretly. It's just that they have suffered the harm caused by fame once, and now they are becoming more and more calm. When Mr. Hua heard this, He stood up angrily. It seems that the Song family's wings have become stiff. Old man, I don't know whether the Song family's wings are strong or not, but I think you know better than anyone why my little sister married into your family back then. Originally I wanted to save some face, but now it seems. The painter is really arrogant. Do you think that everything will be fine if you become a child in Kyoto? He knew it when he came here, but with his niece's mentality, she still wanted to join the family of historians, dreaming, as long as the family members of historians were not blind. Of course Mr. Hua knew, he also hid a lot of things. Now it seems that the Song family. Forget it. Leave it, the things are also in the hands of my grandchildren, so the painters will not lose. The painting father looked at his father with red eyes. Dad, his voice was choked with sobs. Perhaps he never thought that she would leave him, never thought that she would give up her child. It was also these experiences of his that made him so unbridled over the years. The child outside. Sign it. Brother Song handed over the pen. The mother-in-law smiled throughout the whole process. Her heart had been hurt a long time ago and hardened, and it would no longer hurt, bleed, or even have the slightest turmoil. The painter's hands were trembling, looking like he was being tortured. Stop being pretentious here. If you really have any affection for my little sister, then your son outside will not be 1 or 2 years younger than Huaziju. Brother Song couldn't stand his virtue. Brother Song's mouth was so vicious and cruel that it made the painting father collapse. Before he collapsed, he signed his name, wondering whether to let her go or let him go. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 429. Chapter 429, Thoughts? Brother Song put away the pieces of paper and said, "Little sister, let's go." He looked at his little sister. The painter's mother felt relieved with all her heart. Yes, she had nothing to take away. According to her brother, he didn't like anything like the painter. "I will buy it again when I get home." Of course the mother-in-law has no objection. The dowry she had received when she got married had already been spent. What is left now? So, she was really alone. Just as Huamu got up, Huakaiyan came back. When she came back and saw her uncle, her heart trembled. Walked to her grandfather, and then called to Uncle Song, "Uncle." Uncle Song glanced at his niece. She didn't see his uncle's joy in her eyes, but only defensiveness. He smiled. "Your dad and your mom are divorced. Are you going to go with your dad or your mom?" Uncle Song asked, as if to make him or his little sister give up. At first they had no hope, but when they heard Huakaiyan's answer, they still couldn't help but feel disappointed. "No, it's better to leave. It's better for Mom. In the future, Mom can come and visit us more often when she has time." Huakaiyan looked like a master. This child was really taught badly by the painter. Not to mention that Ziju. The painting mother smiled. "Let's go, brother, we will talk about the future later. Maybe I can have another child, and I will teach you the child then. I have to have one to support myself in my old age." After saying that, the brother and sister left the painter directly. Hearing this, Huakaiyan's face was full of anger. No matter what, it was her mother, how could she ignore her? "It's just that the Song family's background is too poor, and my mother cannot bear the responsibility of being a wife. I have to say, people, please stop using your brain. Mother of Song dynasty's aura is not comparable to that of a painter. Even though the Song family is just a wealthy family, they also have a lot of background. But how can they tell these things to a granddaughter who is not close to them?" Huakaiyan is not at all sad about her mother's departure. Now all she cares about is Shiwaiken and that woman. Outside, a door cuts off a relationship of procreation. "Let's go, it's still too cold here in Kyoto and not as warm as our place." Brother Song disliked Kyoto very much. Of course, It's like spring all year round over there. Yun province is a famous place with beautiful scenery in the world. The Song family is in the jade business. How could the family's background be low? It's just that they didn't check for a while and were calculated by others. It just so happened that there was someone above the painter, so the marriage was facilitated. Let's go home. Don't keep your parents waiting. It was obvious that brother Song was in a good mood. Well, let's go home. Song Jingjing was in a beautiful mood. No matter who is involved in the poisonous plot in the house, it has nothing to do with anyone. Afternoon, Mei Shui went to find Xiaobai. When she saw it crawling on the grass in despair, Mei Shui laughed rudely. You can't find it if you can't find it? You're not satisfied with such a big piece of soul wood. She is a contented person. In the past, she just wanted to have hot dishes and meals to eat every day. Now, she just wants her family to be safe and well. She has never thought about becoming a god, nor does she believe it. Master Xiaobai was even more disappointed. He understood his master's mood, but he couldn't understand his mood. Mei Shui stepped forward and hugged Xiaobai. Is there any way to make you immortal? How could Mei Shui not know what Xiaobai was thinking? I just don't understand. What's the good thing about immortality? It's not that the longer you live, the better your life will be. On the contrary, the greatest happiness is to have no wishes in life. Yes, I can live forever by sealing the space after the master's white years, so that it cannot reincarnate with the master. Xiaobai knew that this was impossible, so he said this. Mei Shui was happy after hearing this. That's it? When I die in this life, I will take out the space and give it to you. She believed that she would live a good life without space. Just like now, except for spiritual crystals, she rarely uses things in space. She has learned all the prescriptions now. Instead of believing in a space, she believes in herself. Of course, it is impossible not to use it if there is space. That person is a real fool if he does not enjoy suffering and suffers from it. Xiaobai raised his dog's head and glanced at his master. Forget it, the master didn't understand. Master, it seems that this reservoir needs to be carefully observed in the future. Xiaobai felt that there were still treasures here. No problem, we live in Kyoto now. Let's do it this way. If you like it here, how about you and Xiaobai keeping watch here? She just released the spiritual crystal, but she was still afraid of large animals coming down the mountain. When Xiaobai heard this, he was happy and said, okay, I will listen to the master. Mei Shui was speechless. Okay, don't stay here, let's go back to the village. And Yang still has to discuss farming with the villagers, and I have to go back and keep an eye on the children. With so many children, Li Hai alone could not see them. Forget about the old lady and the old man. Well, master, you go ahead, I'll go down and have a look. Xiaobai still didn't give up. Meixiu had no choice but to let it go. Back in the village, Mei Shui found a chair and moved it out to sit with Li Hai. The old lady and the old man are not far away. Seeing Mei Shui coming, the three of them immediately stopped talking and looked at her. Where is Xiaobai? Seeing her grandma asking herself, Mei Shui smiled. It likes life in the mountains and refuses to come down. It's rare to see a dog like the mountains, the old man said with a smile after hearing this. Xiaobai was picked up by them in the mountains. Isn't it normal to like mountains? The old lady liked to criticize Uncle Shi. Whose dog have you seen living in the mountains? It's not a wolf, the old man said unconvinced. If you are not convinced by my family, you can go ahead if you are not convinced. These two people. Sister-in-law, you said there are so few people in the village, will those people from before come back in the future? Li Hai may have been following He Anyong for a long time and has many things on his mind. I don't know, but it's not important. These procedures were all given by the military department. Sister-in-law, if those people don't come back, can we buy all the land on the four sides? If this is the case, there is no fear of it being taken back in the future. Meixiu didn't expect her to say this. What, You want to buy land? She asked with eyes brightening. Yes and no. Lehei smiled and looked at the person in front of her. She didn't believe that she hadn't thought of the question she thought of. Sister-in-law, you said we took over the contract here for 70 years, what about after 70 years, by then we have developed this place, and if those people want to go back, we will be grateful. Yo, I have an idea. She also thought about this. The fields in the village are all contracted. Of course, they are given yearly, not all at once, otherwise she would not be able to come up with so much money. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 430. Chapter 430, Confession. So, if we buy the land here, after the development is completed, they don't have to worry about when it will be taken back. This is a good idea, but unfortunately, we don't have enough money. A village has a lot of money. Lehei is also someone who has met the situation before. You can borrow it. There are some loans in the bank now. We can ask the old man to help us borrow a large amount of money, Lehei said in Mei Shue's ear in a soft voice. Mei Shue was really happy now. The idea is very good, but we have to discuss this matter with An Yang. After all, he has a share in each base. That's right, since the beginning of the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, Mei Shue has left shares in the base for An Yang. Of course Lehei knew this. So, we borrowed money to buy this place. It's half empty. I'm afraid the country wants to move people out. It seems that An Yang has discussed this matter with you. Lehei didn't hide it either. Well, he said it, but he said you don't have money now, and we don't have much money. Everything is difficult without money. Well, since I think it's more cost-effective to buy it here, let's buy it. I'll figure out how to deal with the money. Originally, she had no such idea. She thought that the spiritual crystal would expire in 10 or 20 years, so it would be okay if she didn't need it by then. Now it seems that An Yang is very optimistic about this village. It's a good relationship, but we can't pay nothing. It's too much of an advantage. Lehei felt very embarrassed. We have a total of 100,000 yuan in our family. It's not much money, but it can still help a little. Lehei is not secretive at all. Haha, you are really rich. She was very happy to see the people around her become rich one by one. I can't compare to you, sister-in-law. After chatting and laughing for a while, and after the children had enough playing, Mei Shue began to arrange for everyone to go home. Huanian Chen had a lot of fun today, and even experienced a life he had never experienced before. I was still very reluctant to leave when I went back. The old man couldn't help but smile from ear to ear when he saw his great-grandson so happy. Nian Chen, don't go back today. How about you go home to accompany your wife? You don't know that my wife is alone at home every day. You can be as pitiful as you want. But compared to this new wife, her mother is more important in Huanianchen's heart. Madam, I'm worried about my mother being alone at home. Huanianchen wanted to accompany him, but he was more worried about his mother. It's okay, your dad called and said he had taken your mom home. Halfway through the words, the old man closed his mouth and became a little embarrassed. Huanianchen still doesn't understand. She's just afraid that as soon as she steps away, the person behind her will go looking for her mother. Looking at his great-grandson's angry look, the old man laughed heartily. So, let's go home together. Xiao He, who was driving, saw the old chief smiling so happily, and he was also happy for him. Huanian Chen, what else is there to say? Historian, Xi's mother came back at noon. After she found out what her son had done, she was both angry and happy. Happy that he has a grandson, but angry that his son has neglected his daughter-in-law. Let her suffer for so many years. But no matter what, she was even more happy. At night, Mei Shui and Hians were sleeping on the bed, and Mei Shui told him about the loan. I think it's good. Buying it can be considered as leaving some wealth for the children. After hearing this, Hians agreed with Mei Shui's idea. But this loan is a bit large. Don't we have enough money on hand? Hians said after calculation. Mei Shui thought that if she disposed of the porcelain and gold in the space, she might not have to borrow it from the bank. Ans, do you still remember the gold we found on the mountain? Mei Shui used to be wary of everyone, but now, she has 100% trust in the person in her eyes. Remember, but haven't all the gold been sold out? The last time he used money, he gave it to Zhiguang. Meixiu sat up from his arms. I lied to you about something. She wanted to tell him about the space, but she didn't know how to tell him. Hians looked at Xiaoxiu's face with a nervous look on his face. What's the matter? He was scared. After seeing that he was more nervous than herself, Mei Shui became less nervous. Mei Shui waved her hand and took out a few gold bars from the space. I also found a storage space on the mountain. She can tell him about space, but she doesn't plan to tell him about rebirth. I don't know if it's because I'm afraid that he will know that he is not her. But she didn't want to hide the matter of space. Tell him that this space was given to her by Xiaobai and that she found it in the cave. He also told him that there were a lot of medicinal materials grown in the space and so on. Just like offering a treasure, I told Hians the same thing. After hearing this, Hians was dumbfounded. Daughter-in-law, you are not a fairy, are you? Looking at the things on the bed, Hians swallowed his breath and said in a very unstable tone. Mei Shui saw his sister-in-law and smiled. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I'm a fairy? Do I look like a fairy like this? This man has a really big heart. Concerned about whether the point is wrong. Unexpectedly, when he heard that he was not a fairy, he breathed a sigh of relief and hugged her tightly. That's good, that's good. Looking scared. Mei Shui was speechless. Isn't it better to give you a fairy wife? He joked. No, the fairy will leave me, but you won't. Don't leave me, Xiaoxiu, don't leave me. Seeing him so uneasy, Mei felt embarrassed. Well, let me go first. Break away from his arms. Now let's talk about space. Don't you have anything to ask me? Mei Shui looked into his eyes and said. Hians shook his head. No, if Xiaobai gives it to you, it proves that you are more suitable. I have something to ask. However, wife, you are stupid. There are so many things in the space, why do you still need to borrow money? Hence, Hians then began to evaluate the value of these things on the bed. Seeing that he looked like he had never seen the world, Mei Shui directly put away the things and pulled him into the space. Let him take a good look at the space. The space within the space is very different from the space at the beginning. Now this place is like a small world, with everything in it, thriving and prosperous. Xiaoxiu, is this ginseng? She asked, looking at something about the size of a radish in the ground not far from her feet. Meixiu took a look and said, yeah, but the medicine is too powerful, so we can't use it yet. This ginseng was the first one she planted. But who knew that one kind would no longer be edible? The medicine was so potent that they couldn't digest it even now. End of this chapter. 80s, The Farmer's Wife is the Boss. Author, Village Girl in City. Chapter 431. Chapter 431, Go Play. What about these? There is another piece of land, and there are also ginseng on that side, about the size of a carrot. These are the ginseng used in the pills I make for you on weekdays. They can use these medicinal materials. How old are these? Hians swallowed. About 300 to 500 years. These are grown from older ginseng seeds after they germinate. Oh my god, Xiaoxiu, we are rich. Hians was very excited. Even if they did nothing now, they could still make a fortune just by selling these ginseng. How can we make money if we can't sell these? Mei Shui was speechless. These can't be sold for much money. At the beginning, she sold one for only 10,000 yuan. Who said that? Hians was very unclear about his wife's understanding. I sold it before, and Uncle Zhao's family bought it for only 10,000 yuan. She was very reluctant to part with it at that time. Fortunately, there are a lot of ginseng in the space now. Hians took a deep breath and said, Zioxiu, 10,000 yuan at that time was equivalent to hundreds of thousands or more now. Do you think these are worth it? It turns out that the daughter-in-law's understanding of money was still the same as when they first got married. 10 years have passed and the price is still the same. Ah, so valuable, Mei Shui really didn't know. Of course, the main reason is that she has never thought of selling the medicinal materials here. In Xiaobai's words, high-quality elixirs are hard to come by, and if they are sold, no matter how much money they make, they will lose. So Mei Shui kept his words in mind and never planned to sell these medicinal materials. Plus, the whole family used them for food, so she was even less likely to sell them. She could be forgiven for not knowing. Hian's heart trembled a few times, but he never imagined that he would never be able to climb the mountain of his wife. Daughter-in-law, you will support me from now on. After Hian's read it, he walked up to Mei Shui with a flattering look on his face. Seeing him acting like a monster, Mei Shui burst into joy. Okay, I'll support you from now on. For some reason, after telling her about the space, she felt a lot relieved and felt clear-headed. The internal energy also began to loosen up, even more loosely than when he obtained the soul wood before. Mei Shui hurriedly sat down and said, my inner strength seems to be increasing again, please wait for me for a while. She was joking happily at first, but suddenly she couldn't help it anymore and had to release her inner strength, otherwise. Seeing her like this, Hians immediately calmed down and moved a little farther away from Mei Shui. Looking at the people sitting on the grass, Hian's face was full of happiness. His wife gave him such a big surprise, how could he not be excited and sigh with emotion? But my wife is still not strict with her words. I will have to talk to her after she gets better. After seeing his wife enter meditation, Hian started to explore the space. It was a novel experience. Hian saw a lot of things in a small woolen room, including food, clothing, money, gold bars, porcelain, etc. Looking at these things, he felt that his family was really rich. Picking up a gold bar from the ground, Hian smiled, I'm still borrowing money, I'm afraid that the banker is not as rich as his family. However, these gold bars are not very pure, and they are not antiques, so the selling price is not high. It is better to sell them earlier. The price of gold is not bad now. Compared with before, it has dropped a lot. After cleaning things up, Hians was sweating. You can imagine how many things there are here. When I have time, I will make some cabinets for my wife. It is really inconvenient to store things like this. There are piles of things, and it is really life-threatening to find them. Hians didn't know that his wife didn't have to look like him to find something, she could just make a conscious move. When Mei Shui woke up, she found a lot of dirt on her body, so she went directly to the river without thinking. She is used to being in this space, and she can take clothes and other things as soon as she realizes it. Meixiu, the spiritual river, is usually used to irrigate the fields, and what is fed is the small spiritual water well. Since being struck by lightning, great changes have taken place in the space. In Xiaobai's words, it is full of aura. But it just can't be practiced. Hians was immediately alarmed when Mei Shui moved here. He saw such a beautiful scenery when he came after the clothes. Zioxiu Hians swallowed. Even after 10 years of being together, he still couldn't see enough. Mei Shui heard the sound and slapped her forehead. Why did she forget to bring Hians in? Give me the main uniform and I'll put it on first. Mei Shui sank into the water. Hood the scenery on the body. Hians is not willing, let alone willing. Fortunately, there is a big time difference in space. By the time the two of them came out, only half an hour had passed outside. Let me go. Mei Shui's whole body was weak, and this man would never be able to feed her enough. Don't let me go, don't let me go, you are mine. A man's pretentiousness really makes people's heads hurt. Mei Xiu didn't want to pay attention to him, then just hold him, I'm going to sleep. The couple had not discussed the matter, but Mei Shui was exhausted. Hians did not go to the company the next day, but stayed at home with his beloved wife. When Mei Shui woke up, everyone in the family had had breakfast. He and Yang went to the village early in the morning. Now that the village has started working, he is busier than anyone else. Hey, sister-in-law got up early enough. Li Hei stayed at home with her grandma today. Seeing Mei Shui coming, she immediately started joking. As soon as Mei Shui came over, she saw Hian sitting on the sofa with the children and grandma. When she heard Li Hei's joke, she immediately glared at Hian's. Hian's touched his nose and immediately turned his head away from his wife. Have any opinions? Mei Shui rolled her eyes. Is there still breakfast? I'm so hungry. She was really hungry. Yes, Brother Ens has prepared it for you in the kitchen. Li Hei covered her mouth and said happily. Mei Shui nodded, well, I'll go eat first. Huh, man, you need to take care of yourself. The children are all gathered around their father. They go to school on weekdays, but their father is not at home on weekends. Dad, would you like to take us to the park today? Xiao Cheng really wanted to play, but he had never been there even once. Xiao Peng also wants to go, and many of my classmates have been there. Dad, I want to go too. Xiao Peng looked at his father expectantly. Xiao is older, but when it comes to playing, this has nothing to do with age. Looking at them all, looking at me, except for Ran Ran, everyone was looking forward to it. Okay, we'll go after your mother has finished eating. It's rare to have time to spend time with the children. Oh, I went to the park to play, I went to the park. Everyone became excited. Seeing them so happy, Hians felt very satisfied. In life, all he wants is peace, happiness, and happiness. End of this chapter.